Okay, so when we started Unit 5, I told you that the whole unit, we're going to be solving systems. Solving systems, where do these two lines meet? And there's a bunch of different ways to solve a system. The first way we learned yesterday was by taking those lines, plotting them, and physically looking at where they touch, okay? Today we're going to talk about what to do if you just don't have some graph paper laying around. So graphing is done. We're not going to solve by graphing. We're going to solve by using substitution. And substitution is basically just putting values in, multiplying it, adding it. It's all about solving equations. So if you are a master equation solver and you know how to, distribute and add, this to both sides, you'll be really just fine today. Okay? So the way I like to kind of teach this is going by levels. So I want you to think about like a video game. When you get a video game, there's like level 1 and level 2, and they increasingly get harder. And level 1 is kind of like that level that everybody can beat, right? It's one of those where you just got to get to it to beat level 2. So let's take a look at level 1s. So remember, my goal is to find an ordered pair. Okay, so I know you're thinking, you're looking at this saying, well, that would be easy. Just give me a piece of graph paper. X equals -1 is a vertical line. Start at 7, go down 2, boom, here's the point. Well, you can't do that for these today. You have to use some algebra today. So substitution. So remember, the whole point in solving a system is to find an X value and a Y value. Ordered pairs are your answers. So it's a level 1 because they come right out and give you half of your answer. They say, here's a little gift. I'm going to tell you that the X value is -1. So right off the bat, you're going to put it. And that's why it's so easy, is because they give you half of your answer. So here comes the second part. I still need to figure out what Y is. We call it substitution because that means we put something in for X or Y and then do the math. So if X is -1, then make X -1 and figure out what Y is, right? So the little bit of math I have to do here is take that -2, multiply it by what they told me X is, and then figure out Y. I do a little calculation. -2 times -1, 2 plus 7 is 9. So when I made X -1, the Y value turned out to be 9. And that's the only value that Y could be when X is -1 for this equation. Does that make sense? Okay, not too hard at all. I think we actually have had this on bell work before, right? So I gave you half the answer, you plugged that answer in for the other equation, and you got an answer as an ordered pair. So I really don't think we need to do much more of those level 1s, right? So level 1 means, here you go, here's your gift. Here's half your answer, you find the other half. Can we move on? Okay, level 2 gets a little trickier, but it's still not too bad, is it? So level 2 would look like this. It would look like 2x plus y equals -12, and y is equal to 2x. So instead of just coming out and giving me one of them and saying, oh, here, y is equal to 2, here's your gift, put it up here, they're not giving you that anymore. But they're making it not so hard because they're just giving you one term, right? You do understand the difference between terms. This is a term and this is a term. And when you have more than one term, you have an expression, right? An expression is when you have terms separated with pluses or minuses. That's not an expression. Technically it could be, but right now we just have one term. So what do? The y value is equal to 2x. So now I need you to kind of, you're going to have, some people for some reason have a mental block on this part. And this is where, if you can get this out of your head, I'm telling you that the y value is really 2x. So where am I going to put this 2x? Here or here? Is it going to go in for x or is it going to go in for y? It's y. But it has an x in it? Yes. So your instinct is to say, oh, it has an x in it. Maybe I should put it in with the x. No. Y is equal to 2x. So this 2x really goes in for y. Because that's what y is. your y value is going to be 2 times whatever your x value is. But I don't know either one right now. So did you see what I just did? I took the equation that y was already alone. Y is equal to this whole thing, and it goes there. So now I have this equation to do, 2x plus y equals negative 12. So I find one, put it in the other equation. And what is your y? It's 2x. Here's how you know if you substituted it right. They both need to be the same. Because I need to know which one to solve for. If that's a y and that's an x, it's going to be like, what do I do? So they both need to be the same. So these parentheses weren't really necessary. I just kind of put them there as a placeholder to show you something goes there. So now 2x plus 2x is 4x. And 4x equals negative 12, which means my x value is negative 3. So now that I know that that's negative 3, the most important part is putting it in the right spot, right? And you know that that's your x, so your x goes first. Okay, I only did half the problem. I still need to find the other half of that answer. What is going to partner with negative 3? Okay, so now here's your choice. You know that x is negative 3, so you can put it here for this x or here for this x. You'll get the same answer either way, but one of them's a little easier. Which math would you rather do? Would you rather take an x and multiply it by 2, or would you rather do it here, subtract it from both sides, and end up adding, do you know what I mean? Like, this equation is obviously already solved for y, right? So if you're solving for y, use the equation that's already solved for y, right? So all I have to do with this negative 3 is go back, and here's the cool part. You can't go wrong. Even if you do put it in here, you'll be okay. You just do a little extra work, which I know you don't want to do. So the y is equal to 2 times whatever your x was. So that means your y is actually negative 6. And let's go back and take a look at that. Didn't they tell us from the beginning that my y value is going to be 2 times the x value? Is that true? Is my y value equal to the x value times 2? Yeah. Okay, so that was kind of a little way to check it. Okay? Okay with level 2? All right, let's just kind of fly through one more level 2 just to get the So this is another level 2. So I have y equals 3x and 2x equals y minus 1. So I'm taking this, which is y, and putting it where? N for y. Even though it has an x in it? Yes. Even though it has an x in it, it's y? Yes. I know it's kind of weird, but we just got to do it. So I'm going to have 2x equal to y, which is really 3x, minus 1, right? So now this is where your master equation solving skills comes into play, because you just need to get x by itself. That's going to give you negative 1x equals negative 1, right? And then that cancels, and all that does is give you a positive 1 instead. So now I need to know which one to fill in. My x is 1. And I'll give you a minute to think about what you do to figure out the y. I'm solving for y. So which equation would you want to use to put the x into? The one that y is already solved for. So we'll do that. And what's 3 times 1? 3. Let's just kind of see if we're right. Is my y value, whatever the x value is, times 3? 3 is equal to 1 times 3, so it works. Okay? Enough with level 2? Well, we're going on to level 3, yep. 5. Yes. And you know what this reminds me of? Like, there was one year when Guitar Hero just came out. It was years ago. And we got it for Christmas, over Christmas break. And I was like, ooh, this is fun. And then the more I played it, the more songs I beat, and the more levels I beat. And I was like, kicking Tom Morello's butt. And it was, so then I got to like that accelerated level or whatever it was, and I could not beat it. I was like furious. The kids were like, Mommy, let me play. And I was like pushing them away. I was like, no, Mommy needs to beat it. It was so frustrating. So I know what you're talking about. And I still to this day never beat it. So there's like 3 songs that I can't do. Once they threw that blue pinky in there and the orange, I was like, I'm out. So this is, you know what I mean? But that's a good example of how I'm doing this. Level 5s, I'm hoping that they don't make you push little kids around, but like that's the ones where like, okay, if you can do the level 5s, then you got this, okay? So we're working our way up. We're at level 3 right now, okay? I didn't really push my kids out, but I didn't let them play though either. Okay, here's y equals 3x plus 2, and x plus 2y equals 11. All right. So right off the bat, you look at this and you know what makes it a level 3, right? Because let's kind of take a look at this. That was a level 1, where y was equal to 3. This was a level 2, where y was just equal to a 3x. Now I have a whole expression that y is equal to. And this is where people kind of start to lose it. Kind of like, you know, like I said, in your video games where you're like, oh, it's going to take you more than one try to actually get through this. Maybe. But some people can get through it, right? So this whole expression is what y is equal to. So this whole thing has to go in there. Oh, and by the way, this whole thing has to be what? Multiplied by 2. So what property do we need? Yes. So watch this. Putting it in is into this equation is probably the hardest part. Once it's in, you're like, okay, now I know what to do. So I'm going to take this 2 and multiply it by that whole thing, and that's going to equal 11. So I'm going to make this whole y equal to 3x plus 2. Once you get to that point, the hard part is over. And then it's just doing what you know how to do, right? So I'm going to have an x here, a 6x here, a 4 here, and then your 11. And then you're home free. 1x plus 6x plus 4. This is back to 6th grade, 2-step equations. And I will tell you this much. I was so nice to you, and every problem I give you is going to be a nice, neat, whole number answer. You will not have any fractions or decimals in your points. So if you know if you have anything but a whole number, go back and redo it because you made a mistake somewhere. So we're on level 3. It wasn't too bad. I just had a big expression here, but I found part of my answer, and it was 1. The good news is that the second step for all of these never changes. It's always the same. Once you know one, you know what to do to find the other, right? You pick one of the 2 equations. So my question is, would you rather put x here or here and have to solve for y? Or use the equation that's already solved for? Yeah, so if you're looking for y, there it is. Just take the x, multiply it by 3, then add 2. So your y will be 3 times whatever your x is, plus 2. So your y will be 3 plus 2, and that's 5. You want to check it? You just did. 3 times 2, or 3 times 1 plus 2 is 5. So is your y value the x value times 1 plus 2? Good? Okay, how is level 3? Because we still got 2 more levels to go. Are we good? Is that? Nobody's getting angry, unreasonably upset yet? Okay, so here we go, level 4. It's getting up there. So you're going to know right away what makes it a level 4.
I don't like
That little squiggle? I know. It takes years and years of practice. It's not something that you can do slow. You got to do it fast. Yes, it's just got to, I don't know. It's not something you can do slow. Okay, so what makes this a level 4? What is it? How is this different from all the other ones that we've seen?
Are we using all the levels?
We're using all these levels. You're going to see them all. So this isn't just like, oh, by the way, you might see this. You're going to see this. So let's take a look at level 1. You notice that both of the equations had a variable already solved for, right? Here, y was by itself. So you went right away to your substitution. Here, y was by itself. Here, y was by itself. So all of your y's were already solved for. Can you say that about this one? No. None of the equations, neither of the equations, have a variable solved for. However, there's one that's pretty close. Which one is it? Well, let me just say this. You have 4 different options right now. 4 options. You literally cannot go wrong unless you make a math error. You can decide to solve this equation for x or this equation for y, or this equation for x or this equation for y. You can pick whichever one you want to get by itself. But if it has a coefficient, you know you're going to need to do what? Divide. And you know when you divide, sometimes it won't go evenly, right? So your goal is to try to avoid division. And which is the only variable you can avoid division with? The top equation, x, right? Because it doesn't have a coefficient. So what I'm going to do is take this equation, because as of right now, I don't know what to substitute in for what, because nothing's solved for. So you need to, and this might be your little notes here, solve one equation for one of its variables. That's always going to be the general rule when you get to a level 4 or above. Pick an equation, pick a variable, and solve it for that variable that you chose. And you need to train your mind to kind of find which one's easier. This one looks pretty good because all I have to do is what? Add 2y to both sides, right? So I'm just going to do this right here real quick. Add 2y. And that's going to give me x equals a positive 2y minus 6. Good? So now that I did that, this equation is kind of useless, right? So to give you one last thing to look at, go ahead and do that if you want, because this is the more useful equation. So now now I'm back to a level 3, right? Now I know what to do. I have to take this whole thing, be careful, I know it has a y in it, but where does it go? In for the x, because they're telling you that's what x equals. So it goes all the way right here, doesn't it? And then, once we get it there, we're home free. Okay? You want to know a big mistake kids make? Almost every single year I see it happen. If this equation isn't scratched out, when they're going to rewrite this equation, your eyes go from here to here, from here to here, right? So when they do this, they'll do the plus 6. When they go to put the equals, they'll look up here, and sometimes they'll see equals negative 6, and they'll put a negative 6 here instead of the 4. So be real careful with that. So now this whole x is that. And now we have 8y minus 24 plus 6y equals 4. And you know what to do from here. What's that? Plus 24. And once again, there it is, going nice and evenly. If you get this far and you don't get a whole number, turn back around. So I know half my answer. It's 2. I'm almost there. I just need to find out what x is now. So this time I want to use the equation that is solved for x. So I'm going to take that y is 2, multiply it by the 2, and subtract 6. So x is going to be 4 minus 6, negative 2. Good? You stay with me on that one? Okay, because we got one more. Ready? The elusive level 5. Can you beat it? I'm having flashbacks. Okay, so level 5 is this. There's my squiggle because Maddie loves it. Negative 12x minus 9y equals 21. Negative 4x minus 3y equals 8. And I know if you've been following each level as we went and you saw it increasingly get harder, like I would never start with this, but so this is kind of manageable now, right? So you kind of have an idea of what to do. The only thing that makes it a little harder than the level 4 is that this had no coefficient in front of x, but what about these? They all have a coefficient. So here is the beauty of this equation. Oh, I didn't, yeah, I know. You know what? This one I don't. I'm going to come back to this one in a second, but there is one that I'm going to show you why. So let's take a look at number 7 right here. So you really have the option of solving this equation for x or y, or this one for x or y. But let's think about this. I told you earlier that a coefficient means you're going to have to divide. So if I choose to solve this equation for y, I'm going to have to divide 6 by 3. Does that go evenly? And I'm going to have to divide 15 by 3. Does that go evenly? Yeah, that's looking like a pretty good option, right? If I choose to do this, does 15 divided by 6 go evenly? Does 3 divided by 6? I mean, it's easy. It's a half. So does 3 divided by 4? 11 divided by 4? So there really is an obvious choice here, right? And which one is it? It's to solve this one for y. Because watch, when I add 6x to both sides, I'm going to have negative 3y is equal to 6x plus 15. Then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And that's going to give me y equals what? Negative 2x minus 5. And once I get one of the equations solved for one of the variables, it's back to level, 1, 2, or 3. Okay? Are you good on that? Okay, so then, I'm not going to just finish that one, but there is going to be one other thing here, and let's just do, I don't know if I want to get into this one because it involves some crazy fractions, but I want to talk about what's going to happen if you come across a problem that looks like this. Let's say after you do all the substitutions and everything's good and dandy, you get something like this. 8y plus 3 minus 8y equals 8. Or 18, 28. So this is after your substitution. This step right here. So you see how I had 8y and a 6y and I combined them and got 14y? Well, what would happen if my 8y and my negative 8y actually canceled? Yes, I would have 3 equals 18, which is not true. So do you remember the bell work? Bottoms on Wednesdays when it says what happens when the variables cancel and you have a true or false statement? Right? Remember that? A false statement means what? No solution. No solution. So, if you encounter, and you will encounter this twice, I believe, twice. If you encounter that, and you will, where your variables end up canceling after all your substitution is said and done, and you're left with something like 3 equals 18, your answer is not an ordered pair. Your answer is there are no ordered pairs. So they must be what kind of lines? Parallel to each other. You want to know a good way to check it? If you solved each of these for y and found their slopes, chances are they would be the same. Okay, not chances are, they should be. Okay? So what if all this happened instead of 8y plus 3? What if you had 8y plus 18 minus 8y equals 18? Then you would have 18 equals 18, which would mean what? instead of no solution, everything would work, which means they're the same line, right? It means, because I want to show you this. Y equals 2x minus 1 versus y equals 2x plus 6. Okay, this is really important here, actually. So go ahead and write this. Same slope, different y-intercept means parallel, right? Well, yeah, if you find that they're parallel, then there is no solution. Okay, what does same slope and same y-intercept mean? It's the same line. So where do they intersect? Everywhere. Infinitely many solutions for that. So same M, same B is everywhere, which is infinitely many solutions, right? What's the only thing we didn't do yet? Same y-intercept, different slope. Somebody asked me this yesterday in 5th hour. They were like, okay, same slope, different. Same slope, same slope. The only thing else is, what if it's the same y-intercept, different slope? I said, you tell me. What does that mean? The only time they're never going to meet is when they're at the same slope. So we know they're meeting. And you can tell by looking at the equation where they're meeting. They're meeting at the y-intercept, right? Aren't they both starting at -8? So different slope, same y-intercept means they meet at the y-intercept. Okay? Okay. So I need you to get some practice with this.